Well, welcome to day 4. To me, it's like day 1, but anyhow, to the rest of you, it's day 1 or day 4, and we are focusing on learning, education, and development, and this is session 4A. So, this I understand people are probably very familiar with. Just a reminder to mute. That's always a good idea. And this is our agenda for today. So we have a first panel that will take up the first hour and a second panel. And they have different focal points. But the two key issues that we're going to be discussing is getting people involved in Bridge and then keeping them involved. And then how these two basically different assemblages work in terms of attracting sort of different Bridge demographics. And then also woven into this session are just some considerations about the new opportunities and challenges that have emerged since this, rather wild flee to everything online. So I have a few comments Sam had asked me to make just to sort of kick that dimension of it off. But before I do, just a reminder that there are several recorded presentations here that are also very good for people to be taking a look at. So briefly, in the time that I have, I'm going to speak about the pedagogies of technology and the pedagogies of Bridge. So my research focuses on the digital and how ways of knowing and working and actually living are changing globally as the digital infuses, our sort of life routine. So I've become increasingly interested in the growing datafication of work and learning activities, delving more into artificial intelligence and robotics, but I have a long history in online design and development that actually goes back over 20 years. I can't believe I can say that, in all sorts of contexts, from the higher education sector to the NGO sector to private, like to industry, and also into sort of the global consulting sector. I was interested in Sam's comment that a good presentation to watch was the one around sort of the sexism, because I do actually have a strong passion in my research focuses on some of the gender implications of some of these digital moves. So I think that is always something to kind of keep in mind. So I've been asked to provide a bit of theoretical framing for the digital mediation of learning and teaching Bridge, of what I've started to call the pedagogies of technology and the pedagogies of Bridge. So this is a very quick and very selective introduction. We might be able to return to some of these ideas later on. So what we have found ourselves in the midst of is the rhetoric around digital pedagogies has really escalated as an unprecedented number of organizations, staff, and participants have found themselves and continue to find themselves designing, engaging in, and making decisions about learning and teaching in online spaces. But at the same time, it's not really clear what sort of theory, research, and concepts are or should be guiding these educational practices. Given that the field of online learning is sometimes criticized for not engaging as robustly as it could with theory, what is happening is, and has been happening actually for a while, is a real mishmash of approaches, oftentimes too much emphasis on what technology can do rather than what it needs to do pedagogically. And we also have the situation of many unacknowledged assumptions about teaching and learning built in at every stage of the process. So from the design of the interface to the algorithms that sort of underpin that, to the rules of engagement, to how it is that certain technologies are made available either within organizations or in the more sort of public sphere. Then you have that other layer of how learning experiences are designed, and then how students and instructors engage. And at each of these stages, so many implicit assumptions about learning and teaching are sort of built into that sometimes, people shake their heads and wonder why things didn't work. And sometimes it's not that something wasn't designed well, it's just that there are so many different sort of theoretical things sort of bumping into each other that can create problems. So to kind of change the discussion a little bit, I have purposefully used the notion of pedagogy because I wanted to focus not on teaching, not on learning as sort of separate things, but the two together, as well as the doing of bridge. And Lav and Wenger, who wrote the original piece of work on situated learning, talk about learning is not something that's this independently reifiable process that just happens to be located somewhere, but it is actually an integral part of generative social practice in the lived-in world. So there are quite a few really important ideas in that, and one of them is that idea of taking a practice-based focus. So trying to see then pedagogy as something that's situated, as situated activity. It's relational and it's material. The knowledge is not a product that is given. It's not something that's an output. It's not something that it's applied, but in fact, it's something that's far more active. And so you might come across the notion of knowings in practice. And this is the idea that the knowing and the learning and the doing are sort of all integrated. And this is emergent, it's evolving, and not always specifiable in advance, which I think is quite appropriate when I think about the bridge context and the complexities of bridge, not just playing bridge, but the whole doing of bridge and its many, many layers. So this moves us well beyond the limits of focusing on individual skills and competencies. It takes us beyond that banking concept of education, which is a notion that Paulo Freire advanced, you know, that the learners that you have or yourself as learner, we're not just empty vessels waiting for the teacher to come by and sort of pour knowledge into us. It's something that's a far different process. So that's just sort of situating that. I'd like to then pose the question of, is there such a thing as the digital? I actually think there is as a thing and actually as a verb, but as Leslie Gourlay writes, the adjective digital sometimes reproduces the binary notion that a pure digital realm exists, separate from the analog, the material, and the embodied. And the idea behind that is we need to remember that while we're in and very engaged in our sort of digital spaces and what is happening in that, we still have our feet on the ground somewhere. And so that material aspect and that place and space-based idea of learning is still very prevalent when we think about digital. So I tend to refer more to the digital mediation of learning work and everyday living. And it makes me wonder where we can go if we started to think about pedagogy as something that's far more networked and distributed. So networks of relations of people and things. And what would happen if we paid more attention to the thingly gatherings in the performance of practice, including bridge and including the pedagogies of bridge. And that's where the sort of more than human theorizing comes in. And that might be something that's familiar to you or not, but it is a way to bring things out of the background, and it is to get us away from that generally unhelpful discourse of determinism, which is thinking about digital things as these tools sitting there benignly in the background, just catering to human whim. So that could be one hand. And on the other hand, you know, the other discourse of determinism, which is they're actually directing all human activity. So it's somewhere in between. And we're getting to that notion of not just the who or the what, but the both together. And we can think about how technologies fold into us as much as we fold into them. You know, the consultant and their cell phone, the chef and his knives, the doctor and her stethoscope. There's that sense of togetherness, which got me thinking about what are the things that fold into the pedagogies of bridge. So you would have cards, you might have physical arrangements in a room, you might have scoring sheets, rules, how-to books and websites, but there are also online communities, blog postings, Alexa, mobile phones. There are all these other sort of things. And without these things, without these assemblages, the sort of doing of bridge and indeed even our everyday practices just simply wouldn't exist. So that enables us to look at digital practices a bit differently. And we can start to maybe think about education becoming the accomplishment of a network of people and things and ideas and activities rather than just an individual. And then I do want to end with putting this up there. We can come back to this later if there's time. I am happy to also send out a reading list, but this is often a very useful model for people that are working in any kind of sort of pedagogical context, but particularly in an online or blended learning mode. And in this model, the community of inquiry model, advocates that there are sort of three forms of presences: social presence, teaching presence, and cognitive presence. And through the design and the facilitation of your learning, you're actually managing these three presences. More recent scholarship has added a fourth component around emotion, and I noticed that idea of affect came up a little bit in some of the videos that I was watching on the site. I want to pause here just by posing the question for us to think about as we go throughout the seminar of thinking about what teaching presence is. It is not just a person sitting at the front of the room or, you know, having the microphone in a session such like this. Your teaching presence, or the teaching presence, comes through the design and organization, through everything that becomes what is the learning experience. It comes through the way discourse and discussion is facilitated. And yes, there are moments of direct instruction as well. So some curiosities we can return to perhaps at the end around blended learning. What is really new about what's going on? What is being made invisible? Those kinds of things. But that's enough about me. And now we will then turn over to the first panel. And
we have to say Rob's not here yet, so Mary Sharp will go next. Mary Sharp's a teacher from England, but we'll take Rob at the end if he does get in time. If not, he does have a pre-recording, which is fabulous, and so I recommend people watch it if they haven't, because I think he shows quite an interesting teaching presence in his pre-recording.
Excellent. Okay, so what we're doing is we have 5 people, assuming Rob makes it. They each have 5 minutes, and they were given questions around what are the effective ways to attract and teach new players. And this one I find particularly fascinating: what might be done to recruit and retain players of working age, so that particular assemblage of those types of workers. So they'll have 5 minutes, and I will throw up the 1-minute sign, and I will throw up the 1-minute sign and the stop sign. If you don't see it, I will actually interrupt at the 5-minute point to ask you to please stop and wrap up. So on that note, Mary, I guess it's over to you.
Thank you very much. Follow that, Terry. Thank you. Well, I'm Mary. I'm a bridge teacher. I'm a trustee of EBED, which is the English Bridge Charity, who I'm not representing today. I'm not representing their views. And I'm also a teacher of bridge teachers for EBED as well. Attracting new learners, I've got a kind of a potpourri of ideas. I mean, I think that really bridge needs to operate in the same social world that the rest of us live in all the time. We need to stop. Sometimes when I play bridge, I feel like I'm leaving the normal world and I'm entering a weird world where different rules and different people operate, and I want it to be more normal. And I mean by that, it's got to be more media savvy, it's got to be more gender neutral, and normal social rules have to apply. And maybe that's all a bit self-evident. But my interest is in teaching, and I think that retention of learners is a much bigger issue than recruiting the learners. I think we get the students into the classroom, but we don't get them from there into the club room. So I think what goes wrong sometimes is in the teaching. There's too many people drop out, they can't cope with it, they go just to kitchen bridge. And I think that the big question for me is that bridge is probably too complicated a game for a mass surge of people to learn it like we would like them to. And I think there are aspects of bridge that we need to look at to reform, possibly the scoring. Teaching the bidding is a problem. I mean, at EBED, we're looking at mini bridge is okay as a teaching tool, but it's limited. I think it's a bit dull. We're looking at EBED at something called Hool, which is a kind of step up from mini bridge, kind of a very pared down bidding system. So I think we have to really be original in the way that we present our game. But I think more than any of that, what we have to do is to teach bridge really well. And I don't know if we teach it well enough. We have to understand how people learn and how to differentiate the people in front of us. They come with different abilities and different goals. And as teachers, we need to respond to that. I mean, exactly what Terry was saying, the classes need to be interactive, but they need to be focused on the student learning experience and not on just a whole welter of facts. And I think the difficulty in bridge teaching is balancing. Of course, you have to be hands-on and play the cards, but you also have to teach the conceptual learning, the big ideas that lie behind bridge. For example, you know, a shutter bid or a forcing bid, which is a concept you can apply in many different situations. And so you have to combine the conceptual learning with the practical learning. And I think that's a very difficult thing for a teacher to do. I'm quite interested in the idea of the growth mindset, which is an idea in teaching generally. And that focuses on building students' resilience and resourcefulness, because if we don't teach those skills alongside teaching bridge, they're not going to be great bridge players. It's how to compete in a kind of competitive, difficult situation. The key phrase there that is used is you've got to teach your students what to do when they don't know what to do. It's no good teaching them statement and then giving them practiced hands, which are exactly, oh, 2 clubs, 2 hearts, it all works. We need to teach them how to deal with unfamiliar situations, not familiar situations. And I think that's perhaps quite a difficult thing to do. We need to research the best way, as in my video presentation, of teaching bridge, how long it takes, what the best methodology, the best pedagogy is. I'm not sure we really know. Research why people fail, why people drop out. And I think this is so important that I would make a plea that we refocus whatever resources we have from our national bridge organisations, our clubs, away from the elite competitive game down to the teaching of beginners and getting them into the game. I think that is so important. So that's the first half of my answer. Then the second question was about 25 to 45-year-olds. I think most of the same things apply. I think if our teaching maintains our students, we probably wouldn't have that problem. And I don't want to be embarrassed. I'm proud of the elderly demographic. I don't think it's something to be embarrassed about. I think it's something to celebrate. But I think really if our clubs were a little bit more social, actively social in the way that golf clubs are, you would attract a wider demographic. If you knew it's a place to go to meet friends and have other social activities as well as bridge, I think that would be much more attractive. So my key message really is research into the proper methods of teaching, how we do it. And I don't think we really know enough about it. Thank you. Right.
Thank you, Mary. Just trying to get my virtual clapping going. Very well done and well to time. Okay, I feel like we should stop and talk about it now, but we have to keep moving on. So next up we have Milan right there. Okay, excellent.
Yep. Hello, everyone. Welcome here. Meryl things. First of all, at the beginning, I would like to say that in bridge, there is no best way of doing anything. There are just multiple ways, and for everybody, a different kind of way works. And that's what we kind of tested when we had the coach seminars for teaching the kids within the EBL, which Mika might be talking later about. It's also about like what's demographics or what country you are in. And I'm from a small federation, having an experience of over 25 years of playing and 10 years of organization. And at this moment in present and for the future, I actually wanted to dedicate my life to actually the process of teaching and to getting the materials and things necessary to get the youth or the beginners up to the expert levels. So I might not know that much about recruiting seniors or adults, although I'm running the live streams where most of my audience is actually seniors, which surprised me a lot because I thought that when I started YouTubing about 3 years ago, that it will be mainly for the youth. but actually it's the opposite around. You know, I have a lot of seniors there which are sending me great things that they improved, and I think this is one of the things how we can provide cheap or actually free options how to improve your level in the long run. But what is actually my slide here, that if you divide the groups into some kind of like young players, kids, I'm talking about like school kids. We have been discussing what might be the best year or best age to start playing bridge, and like we figured out that it might be at around the age of 10, but with the new methods we are trying to push this lower. I'm trying to test now with my daughter, but she's only 2 years old, so we might get there. But actually the pre-bridge games are very important to attract not just youth, but actually every person who loves cards will love bridge, and that's what we know. And for that, Mary already mentioned the game Hool, which Amaresh came up from India. With this way of game, I had the similar one, so we put together like one of the final versions, although it will keep improving because we are at the start, and that's kind of a mini bridge where you just give and share information about your hands, which can later on be translated into putting up the bidding system. And first you practice the card play techniques and how you get the information and how you make your deductions based on the information. But the idea at the beginning is just to have fun. And if you just look on what is actually we need to look for the various ages, is that in the young ages, the time is that the kids might have time, although they have in these days so many activities that it's very hard to push all of them there. With adults, well, we don't have time at all. I'm in that group, and if I want to start doing some new activity, it has to be really fast, and I can spend doing that like hour or two. So getting me like a new player to a bridge club to play a 3.5 hour session, impossible. So sorry for that. For seniors, well, this might be the thing that they might have more time, but less ability to actually learn, you know, that fast. Well, for the money issue, if you can afford to pay for good teachers, buying books and stuff, you know, that differs country from country and also by the age. But what is really important is the motivation. And for the young players, it's like self-development. So being in the classroom with other kids and work hard on your skills while being able to travel and compete with the same individuals, while in the other age groups you might not have that. So I hope that we will have a little bit more talk later on, and really looking forward to the questions.
Thank you very much, Milan, and well within time as well. Okay, so we have a difference of opinion on the best way to teach bridge, and is there actually a best way? So this is shaping up to be quite interesting. Next up, we have Akiko Yangasawa from Waseda University in Japan. So Akiko, when you're ready.
Yeah, I'll just get her slides up, sorry. I was...
Okay. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. It is a nice pleasure to see you. I'm Akiko Yanagisawa from Tokyo, Japan. Alongside my major business as a business consultant, I'm a serious bridge player belonging to a board of Japan Contract Bridge League, JCBL, and mainly looking after promotion and public relations. I also had a chance to carry out a master's studies on bridge in graduate school at Waseda University. I'm not an expert of bridge teaching and bridge club management. So today, I'd like to give you a picture of the challenges around the bridge we are facing in Japan, which is a basis for me to see some tips from the conference. Next slide, please. So, what is bridge we play? Of course, you find it a silly question. But here in Japan, if I say I play bridge, then most of the people would say you have a flexible body. Bridge is not well known in Japan. So let's see some facts of bridge in Japan. JCBL estimates we have over 70,000 bridge players in Japan. Two groups of players formed Japanese Bridge Society in 80s and 90s. The first and biggest group is expert spouses who learned bridge in overseas and continue to play games after returning to Japan. The second group is the businessmen who learned bridge in universities and or in companies' bridge clubs. While they are relatively highly educated and wealthy people, bridge makes the fortune. Even 30 years later, they are still the core players in JCBL's financial sponsors through the games. The JCBL members, whose average age is 71, 72 years old, accounts just over 6,000, which saw 7% decrease in a year. And nearly 90% of them are residents in Great Tokyo metropolitan areas. More than half of the new members in the last 10 years are over 65 years old. Student players have been decreasing, and we had 111 registered university student players and only 23 middle school student players in 2019. Same as the student players, we've not been successful to retain the number of players in working generations. In the past, we had over 35 corporate teams in 5-6 flights to play in corporate leagues, but now we probably have 11 teams in 2 flights. So key challenges for the promotion of bridge. Of course, we share the global challenges which have been studied thoroughly by Dr. Punch, Sam, and other specialists, and also may have been discussed in this conference. The most crucial one for us is that, as I said, bridge is not known in Japan. No more than 0.1% of the population may know or have heard of the game. That requires a lot of extra work just to explain the game upon recruiting new players, as well as key stakeholders whom we like to work with for the promotion of bridge. According to the survey I carried out 2 years ago amongst bridge players and learners in Japan, 76% of the people responded that they would like to recommend bridge to somebody, mainly their friends at the same age group. But it was less than 10% who like to recommend the game to their children or grandchildren. Parents and grandparents cannot be the powerhouse for bringing new young players here. What JCBL as NBO may want to do, raising awareness and profile of bridge is crucial above all. Implement more strategic and effective marketing for the target groups, which are for us, students, school children, working generations, and retired, semi-retired age group. As a part of this, we are reviewing the former promotion activities, which were lack of KPI ROI concept. We will also need to focus on wider benefits of bridge as a mind sports, as discussed in this conference, and invite new stakeholders, supporters, including local clubs and communities. More active promotion through SNS and YouTube, as other NOBs have successfully done, and effective use of online bridge for learning and delivery of the games should be seriously considered, even for post-pandemic. The digital platforms have been proactively used by clubs and bridge teachers, but not by JCBL yet. So, we are very keen in learning from the best practice of other nations, despite the huge difference of the scale and maturity of the bridge society and market. Your experience and advice will be highly appreciated. Finally, I'd like to show you a picture of the bridge club in Tokyo. This is my club. As you can see, we place partitions on each table and made every effort to prevent infection problems. Except the 2 months during the first state of emergency, most clubs have opened and offered face-to-face bridge opportunities to the players. That's all from me. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Akiko, very much for the presentation and the pictures. It's nice to see that, to get that visual sense. Okay, and we have up next Stephanie Threlkeld from the American Contract Bridge League to offer her perspectives on these questions.
So good morning. So prior to the pandemic, we had revamped our teacher training program to make it a more interactive program that was based on the principles of adult learning, that people learn more by doing rather than by being talked to. When the pandemic hit, we had a challenge. We wanted to try to come up with an online teacher training program that embodied a lot of those same principles, because a lot of teachers had pivoted online when everything started, but they had not changed the way they were teaching. They basically took what they were doing in a classroom and started trying to replicate that same thing online. And what, I don't know about you, but I know for me, if I sit in front of a lecture online for a long time, I'm pretty prone to start checking my Facebook or checking my email or something like that. If I'm not actively engaged, it's just too easy to be distracted if you're not actually engaged in doing something. So our big challenge was to try to take our regular teacher training program and do something online that replicated that. So we worked with the same consultant, Grace Major, that had helped us develop our best practices, and we came up with an online teacher training program that used Zoom and SharkBridge and a website called PlayingCards.io, which allows you to create a virtual tabletop that you can customize and move cards around, and students can move cards around as if they were using just a table in front of on their kitchen table. So the tenets of this program were that a teacher should talk less than 30% of the time, and the student should be actively engaged in doing something for the rest of the time. And there's also, we utilized the breakout rooms that Zoom has and put students together and let them work through problems together, because other principles of adult learning are also that you learn a lot more by actually doing something and then also telling someone else how to do it than you do just being told how to do it. So once we set our or presented this program, and we've had about 150 teachers go through this program since the pandemic, and then we decided that we needed to try to come up with a beginner bridge program too. We polled some of our teachers and asked, what do you wish your students knew before they got to you? Because teaching pure beginners is just hard. If they're starting from not even knowing what a trick is, you've got a pretty big challenge. So we, a few months ago, rolled out our intro to bridge. We piloted it. We're with a relatively small group of about 40 students. And now we have rolled it out. The class is premiered in June. And it is also a very interactive class. The students, we start off with using mini bridge in the first lesson, and basically basic trick taking skills. The students go to a virtual card table almost immediately. There's a little bit of lecture and then a lot of doing. And so far we've found that, that this has been very effective. The biggest challenges that we have run into have been technology. People say that they know how to use Zoom, and they probably do because they've spent the year talking to their grandchildren on Zoom and their friends and family on Zoom, but they've probably never used the chat function. So you know, they come to the class thinking that they know how to use the technology, but then they can't find the link in chat that sends them to SharkBridge. And even after class 4, sometimes they can't find the link in chat that sends them to SharpBridge. So when you were looking for at challenges, that's what we've really run into. Our more than anything is less about the curriculum and less about the available technology that allows people to play. It's really more the limits of the participants and their technology level. So that's kind of what we've run into. I just saw my 1 minute mark.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie, very much. I'd love to jump in on that whole Zoom conversation, but we'll see where we go. Now, is Rob here?
No, so that's quite good because it gives us a couple of extra minutes to catch up.
Okay, good. Okay, well, those were 4 extremely different, but each insightful presentations and thoughts about attracting and teaching new players, and particularly the work around working with the working age population. So at this point, are there any members of panel 2 who would like to ask questions? If you wanted to just raise your hands. And I'll just go with the first raised hand I see, which is Marlene. I'm probably not going to say your name right. Marlene Denon? Did you have a question?
She's not on the panel, so it's only people on the panel that can ask questions directly. Marlene will have to put her question or comment into the chat.
Okay, so people on the panel. I am not sure I'm seeing anybody on the panel.
It's fine. I don't think anyone wants to chip in at this stage, so you can just look at any questions in the chat.
So now it's a free-for-all. So all questions in the chat, please.
And Morton's coming in. Do you want to come in, Morton? You're muted.
You're on mute.
I will want to put in a comment to what Mary Sharp said, that I will also come onto that later, but I agree very much that we need to understand more about how teaching works, because when we're teaching, I'm talking now of total beginners. Bridge has a very, very steep learning edge. If you compare it to chess, you need to learn 4 or 5 rules. You can actually start playing chess with your kids. But bridge is so tough. There are so many things. So we need to understand what is necessary to get them going with the game, and what can we wait to talk about. Because what I see a lot of times with our teachers and helpers is they are so keen to, you know, help and tell what they know, that the kids get very confused because there are so many rules. And if we could somehow work out, well, what is the basic that we need to talk about, and then shut up about the rest, that could really help teaching beginners, because the curve is so steep to start bridge, that a lot of the students will lose confidence in themselves, and then they will drop out. Yes.
Okay, well, that comment's also on the table if people want to respond to it. Just looking at the chat, Jean Phelps had posted something about agreeing with Stephanie about the comfort that some of your participants might have for actually learning Bridge online. So I don't know, Jean, if you wanted to expand on that, or Stephanie, if you wanted to also just sort of pick up a little bit more on that, or really anybody else from the panel, in terms of thinking about the kind of digital literacies that you know, it's not only because, you know, you never can think about teaching in isolation, it's teaching and learning. And so are there activities that you can be doing quite purposefully as part of your teaching that also build the digital literacies alongside that? Or are there other strategies people have implemented for trying to sort of address that, because Zoom used for calls with your grandkids is not Zoom used for learning. And that's the mistake a lot of people make, is they think a technology is the same no matter what the context is, but all the other things around that technology change, and then that technology becomes something quite different. So Stephanie, I think you did want to sort of pop in.
Yeah, I was going to say, when we did our first round of the intro lessons, we offered an optional tech prep session that was 45 minutes prior to the class, and only about half of the students showed up for it. And then when we started the class, we figured out that the other half probably should have shown up too, because they really didn't have the tech skills that they thought they did. So what we're doing for our next round of classes that starts in July is the first lesson has that tech prep built into it. We're not even giving them an option. The first lesson is just 30 minutes longer, and the first part of it will be how to find your chat, how to find links, how to raise your hand, how to find your window once you've gone to Sharkbridge and you think you're not in Zoom anymore, but you really still are. Because we run into a lot of that. We'll have people telling us, I've lost my Zoom window, and we're like, but we can hear you, so you're still in Zoom, but they can't find it. And so, so I think having that mandatory tech prep as part of the first class, I'm really hoping is going to head off some of the issues that we've run into so far.
You're muted.
Oh, you're muted.
You're still muted.
Oh. Oh, yes. Hard to believe I've been doing it this long. So yes, so I think Jill was saying that it's something that can fade. Like, good technology should fade into the background after a while, and it shouldn't become the biggest obstacle, but that isn't always the case. Other questions that people wanted to ask. Now, there is a lot in the chat. Sam, is anything popping out for you in terms of something to examine?
Well, a few people have made the point, and I suppose this links to Akiko's issue that she raised, and several others have raised this. I think it was Jean Phelps. You know, how do you introduce people to the game? So it's not just about how you teach it and how people learn, but how do you get them through the door in the first place?
Patty has her hand up.
My comment was about a previous comment. Is that okay? That's okay. I was just, Morton was talking about the teaching children or teaching your students and then knowing when to shut up. And I think that's really important. I've been working with a few people who are interested in starting to teach and kind of doing some things with them online. And the hardest thing is not going that extra step, just keeping everything to your basic. Whatever it was you were going to teach, that's what you teach. You don't let yourself go down the rabbit hole and go further. And especially, I think if you were teaching, have a mixed class where, Mary, you might have some older students and some younger students that maybe played bridge earlier. They have ideas in their head and they want to talk about them, and it just confuses the beginners. So I think any beginning class that you do, you have to have, once you figure out what it is exactly you want to teach, you have to have a very defined structure. This is what we're going to do. You can always tell people who know a little bit more to email you after the class, and you'll be happy to answer. But keeping on track and not confusing the vast majority of them, I think is really important.
Yeah, that does raise some interesting questions around how in a mixed group, people can all find their own pathways while you're still teaching something that there is a degree of progression, in the sense that not everyone can just go any which direction in order to learn bridge, but that they need to find a way. I'm quite interested in Janine's comment that teachers working with small groups of beginners online paired them with players from a club who then introduced these players to playing in virtual club games, and that's kind of an interesting starting to get at thinking more of sort of blended or more hybrid models. of pedagogy. So Janine, I don't know if you wanted to be able to comment more on that, or what the panel might have to say about these notions. Perhaps these are things you've tried as well.
Sorry, who are you asking there, Terry Lynn?
That was Janine Higgins.
If they're attendees, they can't, they have to type their answer for you.
Oh, okay. Well, Janine, sorry. If you want to type, go ahead and type. If not, we have...
Mickey Melander snuck in because of his technical difficulties. He's been made a presenter, so we will make an exception and let him speak. Go for it, Mickey. Do you want to unmute?
Thank you. I hope you hear me. I would like to comment two things basically, and the first one is that I think there is a big mistake not to put the cards on the table when you face beginners. You have to put them on the table, you have to let them play, you let to have them fun, you let them have the good coffee and a sandwich or whatever and go home like they do in a normal bridge club in a normal night. And it's not any different for the beginners. It's just a difference between the age. You might be having to serve pizza for the young ones or something else, but still it will not change. They have to play, they have to have fun together in any way they are working. And it doesn't matter what the tool is, but the greatest tool I think, and that I have ever touched in my 25 years working for the Swedish Bridge Federation, is to play mini bridge. This is a superior way, and I put in the chat the link to go to the WBF page, and you have it all in English, including presentation. You have duplicating everything. Everything is there. And I can also inform you that because Morten earlier speak about how to go forward from this part, yeah, we have that. We have 45 lessons, but they're very, very advanced. They're more advanced than the normal bridge club player in all parts of the world, I would like to say. But last about how this one is how to compete. And this is the biggest mistake we do all over the world. We never showed the newcomer how you compete in bridge. They never understand the game until they have been going about 2 years in the bridge course. They have to understand how to win. And we not explain it. We explain the game, but not how to win. They don't understand the difference between teams and pairs. I play in teams. My opposite is on the other part. They have the cards I have. In the pairs, I have maybe 120 opponents, and they not understand it. So why do we fail in this part? This should be the most simple task to explain to them, but it's not simple because it's difficult. And then we avoid it and we explain the game instead. So my advice is check mini bridge out and learn from it. Then whatever method you use, do whatever you want. Thank you.
Thanks, Miko. Just related to that, I don't know whether it's worth mentioning a couple of other questions coming in that's similar to this. From Jürgen Acton says that from his perspective, it should just be really a quick approach, diving in and playing straight away. Do we actually need bridge courses lasting many weeks? But then AJ Fong says, you know, for them in their university bridge club, it's really important for them that they get beginners playing proper bridge relatively quickly because they want to learn the proper game. So, you know, that's two different questions right at opposite ends of the spectrums about what should happen. So I'm sure panel members have some views on that. Patty's got her hand up. I don't know if you can see all the raised hands, Terry Lynn, but Patty has her hand up and so does Sue Johnson.
And I think Mary was trying to speak as well, but you were muted. So should we go Sue, Patty, Mary? Sue, would you like to?
Sure. I mean, I was just returning to the point about blending in-person learning with technology. And obviously, we're all very on the same page about the fact that handling cards and sitting at a bridge table is really important. But I think there are ways I've seen online that are very engaging and that would work very well for young people. And one model I particularly like is a thing that Rob Barrington does once a week with Gavin Walpert, where they play a tournament online with robots, and they invite their audience online and live to contribute ideas about what they should bid or how they should play in any given situation. Now, I think that's something that could work very well with beginners. If somebody who was a teacher were to sit and play with robots and to pause every so often and invite the participation of their audience in, but at a very simplistic level. So obviously not at the level that Rob and Gavin are, but more a question of now, is there a way we can try to take an extra trick in this suit, etc., etc. So I think the blending there of involvement in person with the use of technology and online resources is a really valuable teaching tool.
That's an excellent example. Good. And next up was Patty.
I have two comments. The first was about mixing an experienced player with a less experienced player to play online. There's a teacher in Nashville, Grace Whitlow, a director teacher. She set up some mentoring games and had an experienced players play with some of her new partners. And what she did was created a convention card for all the experienced players that had on it what the new players had learned. And they weren't allowed to introduce like a splinter when the new player didn't know splinters. They had to stick to the thing, and it worked very well. They did then sessions. They were told after the game's over, if one of the new players wants to know something, you're more than happy, go for it. You can tell them anything they want to learn. But that worked well, but kept the comfort level better for the new players to know that they weren't going to be experiencing something crazy. And then the second thing I had was about most of the players, adult players that come into my classes usually do so because they want to play with friends. And if you don't teach them at least enough bidding that they can go sit at a table and play some bridge with their friends, they're not going to stick with it. You can say just only teach them cards, but if all they can do is play a hand and they don't know an overcall or how to open the bidding or respond, they can't go play with their friends. And I think that's a huge, huge part of why people learn bridge. Thank you.
Good. Mary.
You're muted, Mary.
Sam, can you unmute her? I don't have any presenter privileges anymore.
No, we can't unmute anyone. They have to do it themselves.
Okay.
She certainly wasn't muted yesterday. She was quite vocal.
Well, I'm trying to lip read, but I'm not like excellent at it. If you wanted to type something into the chat, Mary. We have about 4 minutes left until our break. We can keep going as well, but just to pick up on something about the idea of getting, sort of what I'm hearing in some of the comments is the idea of getting participants into playing as quickly as possible. Relates a little bit to the theory behind situated learning, where the idea is not that you should be learning about practice, but you are actually learning as a practitioner, as someone in that practice. And so that notion of even how they have a concept of legitimate peripheral participation and how someone moves from the role of novice to expert, and the different trajectories that can take, is something that might be, if you're looking for different ways to perhaps conceptualize these issues, could be something that could be helpful for people. And they certainly would advocate that it's not always necessary to front-end load so much of the teaching. I'm not a bridge expert, but I have taught very skill-based things because I have been a piano teacher and I was a figure skating coach. So I do understand that you can't sometimes just, you know, right away have someone do a double axel. You know, there's a certain amount of progression that has to happen. But I do think that these are areas where there are definitely room to be creative in terms about thinking about sort of different ways of teaching, and these questions are excellent that you're posing. Okay, so we have a couple more minutes.
There is one more question. If well, there's lots more questions, but why you might find another one. One question was some concern from face-to-face bridge clubs with all this online teaching. I mean, expanding online and then geography not becoming an issue. Some smaller clubs are concerned that that's not going to help grow their own clubs. Does anyone have a view on that? And Milan also has his hand up, probably to do with something else. But I think Stephanie just put it up in response to that. And then we'll go to Milan after that, maybe.
Stephanie, you're muted.
Sorry. What we're doing with that in mind is when our students go through our program, we put them in the search engine and encourage them to find teachers that are local, as well as online, and with the thought being and try to encourage them to make a personal connection so that if they do decide they'd like to go play in person, they have somebody local that they've made a contact with. So we're really trying to encourage them first to look for local teachers to continue their studies, and then if that's not possible, then to look online to go forward.
Okay, Milan.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to add that I think one of the field where we are lacking like options is self-learning. And that's what I think for the adults and basically also for the kids is very important, that once you are recruited or get into the bridge, then you can learn the game yourself by watching others playing with the computers, having various tests within the apps, and now actually there are a lot of them. So this is the way how you can improve the players themselves, so when they come to the club they actually know how to play, because it takes too much time to go through the bridge courses, which is for a year.
That's interesting, because blended learning can be a mix of more formal and more informal objects or sort of encounters. Yeah, so that I think there's lots to explore. I'm really fascinated by the question of bridge clubs, face-to-face bridge clubs feeling threatened, and understandably by sort of the online activity. But I think there was an earlier comment about it is actually really interesting. This person was saying that actually there could be these really fascinating global connections. So I guess it's like everything that happens with technology, something gets amplified and something becomes obsolete. And I think it's trying to figure out, I think that's a really critical question that's being asked, but I don't think it's necessarily a door closer. It could be a game changer, but I don't think it necessarily has to close the door. So on that unfortunate, I really wish we could keep talking note, it's time for our 2-minute break. So, okay, let's do it 2 minutes, even though my clock now says it's 1 minute to 2 in the UK. So if we could come back at 1 minute after the hour in whatever time zone you're in, then we can continue on. So if you just before you go, please make sure you're muted.
And to encourage panelists to type their answers to questions that have been unanswered, there's lots of questions in the chat.
Okay. Right. Oh, this is the weirdest part of these things I find. You never know if anyone's actually back from tea break, except the people that have their camera on. Okay, so this is the second panel, which is going to focus more on school and youth bridge. Several recordings have been done in advance, so please do take a look at those, and thanks to everyone for making those. Those are wonderful to give you some learning theory talk, wonderful epistemic objects, things that may extend into the future and continue to be taken up. Kind of along the lines of what Milan was talking about in terms of encouraging more of that sort of informal learning. So you will, each person on the panel will be invited to introduce themselves as well. But first off, we will have Marion and then Morten. And then we will have a short discussion that focuses just on those two presentations. And then we will move on to the next three, Sue, Michael, and Patty. Okay, so Marianne, when you're ready.
Thank you, Ramsa. Thank you very much. Before we move any further, I feel it's urgent to address a few myths concerning bridge and kids that we experience are live and vibrant in the bridge community. And here is one of the most common ones. Let's see. I do have some technical issues here. Try once more. We hear a lot that youngsters are not interested in learning bridge. The truth is that they don't have a clue about what bridge is, so they have no prerequisite to say if they want to learn bridge or not. Once they try mini bridge, most of them love it. I also hear that, but bridge is only for the smart kids. Truth is that kids striving with maths or other school subject will benefit immensely from learning bridge, because bridge is such an excellent model for exploring mathematics and also learning the basic terms, allowing the kids to catch up. And for BEMSA, in your research, it would be really interesting if you could do something on bridge and dyscalculia. And to emphasize that this is not just something I say, I would like to show you our local bridge group. In our little group, we do have 2 kids with a syndrome causing cognitive and physical impairment, and they absolutely love bridge. And the parents are super happy for the bridge game because it offers an arena for these kids to blossom, and it also helps them to keep level with their peers at school. How I've been thinking about what we need to offer young beginners all fell into place watching the BEMSA pre-recording Bridging Insight. A few years ago, we asked our members to describe what they feel when they play bridge, and the most prominent answers were joy and excitement. So basically, we thought that we could divide players into the players playing for social reasons, it gives them joy and amusements, and those playing for game-specific reasons, like the thrill of the game. And players will be in a spectrum. I'm an international player, and still I'm a 50-50. So I don't think I really could expect a random 12-year-old beginner to love the game of bridge itself more than I do. Sure, she wouldn't play bridge if she didn't like it, but she will be excited about playing a fun game with her friends. And if you serve something nice like pizza, she will love it even more. And if she gets to travel to a junior camp or something, you have the full package. And to retain young learners, we really have to focus on the social side. And that's a problem with the way we organize bridge today, I think. Because our young players, they will not bond and find friends amongst our average member, 71 years in Japan. So we need to create separate arenas for the youngsters. Our strategy is first and foremost to let bridge be known in the young population. It's as simple as this. You don't take up something you haven't heard of. And at schools, we meet a lot of kids in a very short time frame. And also allowing us to spend school hours to teach bridge is a way of society quietly accepting that bridge is good for you. And of course, the kids tell their parents. So we aim to build junior clubs where our junior members are. And the Federation offered to send bridge teachers to give the first introduction class. And this is why we recommend doing it. Offer a 2-hour bridge introduction class with every pupil and teacher present. After the lesson, you hand out a sheet of informational material to parents, and you invite everyone to an event on a specific day and a specific time, introduction night in the junior bridge club, and you serve something like pizza or fruit or something. And it really works. Kids show up in big numbers. So our big challenge is to offer an attractive social arena and then to tune into the right learning progress to retain the learners. So beside the prejudices and myths that we talked about, it is a challenge that we missed one generation. We slept in class. Our members are too old to teach their kids because they are already grown. So when building organization for juniors, which I think is utterly necessary, we are missing the parents that are doing engaging in the kids' activities. So it's really challenging. And also, I think being in touch with the governing bodies is important. In a meeting with the Ministry of Education in Norway in January 2020, they said, I quote, "We can see that teaching bridge could be beneficial for students at all levels, from kindergarten till high school." So in terms of getting bridge into the curriculum, this is where we stand. In primary school, our main strategy is to fit introduction classes during school hours and start after school activities. In secondary school, we have work in progress to get bridge as elective subject. And we hope that BAMSA could help us with research designs to test the effects. And in high school, we this year had a real breakthrough because from August, we will be offering top-level sports 1 as a subject. And this is a real breakthrough for us, and COVID has really helped us by gaining accept for digital learning, allowing students from all parts of Norway to participate. Also, we are running a project to teach our junior all aspects of organizational work. Currently, they are involved in all our online bridge courses, our junior camps, and they are also TDs on real bridge sessions. And this is a project I really believe in, and I hope that we could expand, and maybe you would like to collaborate with us. To get bridge into the curriculum, we need to demonstrate for school authorities that learning bridge will benefit the kids' learning processes in one way or another. In other words, the kids will have to be better off spending time learning bridge than doing something else. So what we need is robust research designs that can be applied to trials in schools, ideally that it could be used in several countries. So in the end, our top tips for organizers: read the curriculum and find learning points where bridge may support, write a curriculum for bridge, and be patient and build organizations before starting, and always offer the full package of game, friends and travel. Thank you.
Terry Lynn, just before you start, sorry, Fred, are you there? Can you help Michael Shu? Michael Shu's arrived, but we keep trying to make him a presenter, but it says action failed. So I don't know if his mic and camera aren't enabled. He's tried leaving and coming back in, and we still can't turn him into a presenter.
Okay, I'll have a look right now.
It did work for him the other day, so I don't know if he's doing what he's doing wrong.
Thank you, Marianne. That was an excellent presentation. I was just really fascinated by how you were working with the children or the kids, not sure what to call them, to not just be bridge players, but also to be board members and to take on the other roles of that sort of whole bridge community. Yeah, that's really quite fascinating. And so that was Marianne. I forgot to say that she was from the Norwegian Bridge Federation, in case you didn't figure out she was from Norway. Now we know. Okay, so Morten, you're next. Local Bridge Director, I'm not sure if I've said that right, in Denmark. And so you're going to talk about one of your school projects in Denmark.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. My name is Bilder, and I'm the chair of the Danish School Bridge Association. And apart from that, I'm involved in lots of different bridge things with young people, and when I think of it, also for older people. But I'm going to try and update you on what has been going on in Denmark from 2014 until now, some of the key challenges that we have experienced, and how we approach those challenges. For now, the situation in Denmark, I will start in 2014 because we had a new school reform starting there, and that gave the schools more time for new subjects like bridge. This quickly led us to establishing the Danish School Bridge Association, which is sort of an independent community, basically relying on volunteers. So all our teachers, all our helpers are mostly volunteers, and we are really relying a lot of cooperation with the local bridge clubs. So we try to create a connection between a school and a local bridge club, with the hope that the kids and teachers and parents who get to know bridge through what we're doing in the schools get connected to the local club. When we started, we thought it might be a problem to get into the schools, but what we have experienced is that it's not as hard as we thought, because the schools seem to like bridge. When you explain to the schools what bridge is all about, they appreciate the impact on concentration, cooperation, problem solving, things like that. So we have learned that if you use the right words towards the schools, it's not as hard as you think to get in there. So before COVID, by 2020, we have had activities in almost 200 schools, activities being things from one-day bridge introductions to shorter courses, 2 to 10 weeks, and all the way to full-year class programs. Obviously, the last year we have had to have a little pause, but we are ready to start up again here in August, September, and so are lots of the schools. During those years, we have obviously looked at some challenges that we've been facing, and we have had a year to think about what the biggest problem is, and by far the biggest problem that we see is to maintain the players that we have learned to play. So what happens is that even though we teach hundreds or thousands of young players to play bridge some way or the other, what we see is that when the bridge course stops, we lose all of them, or most of them. I've been talking to people from other countries who also work with quite successful school programs, and this is what we see in a lot of places. So for us here in Denmark, the key challenge is really to maintain and engage the players that like bridge. Obviously, there are some other challenges when you start up on projects like this, getting into new schools, finding helpers, finding and educating bridge teachers. But for us right now, we are really concentrating on the maintaining thing, because, I mean, it doesn't make much sense to try and teach a lot of young people to play bridge if you lose all of them a year later. So what are we going to do about this? How are we trying to approach all this stuff? Well, basically we have been talking to a lot of kids, and we find out that obviously, as everybody knows, the young people are on social media. They are there on their phones, on their computers. So what we want to do is we want to be there with them. And whenever we are going into a new introduction in a school, we have now added to our introduction program that all the kids get assigned to our Instagram and Facebook profiles. And we have teamed up with some professional guys who knows something about this, and so that we have plans for different steps. That the basic step, we just try to remind them that bridge was fun. We try to keep the 15 to 25% of young people who actually think bridge is pretty fun when they try it. So we try to keep them, we try to challenge them, and stay in touch with them, give them small bridge puzzles, small competitions, invite them to social games online on Real Bridge, and give them stories they can share with their friends. So in short, we want to maintain and keep the young kids, and we want to try and engage them and nudge them on the way to the next bridge step on the social platforms, which might be to invite them to a junior tournament or a junior camp. This doesn't mean that we have forgotten all the old steps that we need to take. We obviously need to arrange live activities, in-school activities, after-school activities, junior camps, inter-school championships. But we appreciate that we really need the social media platforms in order to keep in touch with them. So this is what we, the next year, we're going to concentrate extremely much on trying to get an idea of how do we stay in touch with our young players also after the bridge course is over in the school. Marianne and Mary has mentioned some of the stuff that BAMSA research might help us with. I will just add it. It's really, really important that we get some case studies on how bridge impacts learning, because when we talk to politicians in order to get them to support bridge and to fund it, they need scientific documentation to justify giving money to bridge, because everybody comes to the politicians and said, we want you to support this and that. And even though they might think it's a good idea, they need documentation, and they need scientific documentation to justify throwing money after something. Renewing teaching methods, as Mary Sharp was in, I think it's really important to understand that the young people are changing, the way people learn things are changing, and that means that the way we teach bridge in general has to change. So that's very, very important. I'm just going to turn off the sharing now, but I just want to finish by saying that the really, really important thing we need to think about is that it's very nice that we're doing all this stuff to try and teach young people bridge, but if we're not able to keep them engaged in the bridge, a lot of it is wasted. We tried to count over the last 5 or 6 years how many students we've had through, and it's literally thousands. Not that they have been through a long course, all of them, but we have taught so many, and we've seen so many kids being very, very interested in the game, and we have lost them. Because when the course is over, we have no way to keep them in the bridge community and to engage them.
Right, thank you very much, Morten, for your presentation. Okay, those were two very good presentations, excellent, as a matter of fact, with lots of food for thought. As I was thinking about the proof for the politicians, research that would look at bridge as perhaps part of a connection with interdisciplinary curriculum initiatives might be something that works. I was also struck by the possibilities for intergenerational learning. And I kind of agree with something that Sam put up earlier. I think that just because someone who takes it when they're 13 in school doesn't mean that, you know, you never know what will happen 20 years down the road when they come to a different point in their life. But I also wonder, just in terms of renewing teaching, if perhaps these young people themselves, through the way they learn, are going to rejuvenate or change or transform the teaching of Bridge as well, because there's a lot to learn from how young people are actually taking it up in different ways. Fascinating discussions. Okay, so what do we have? We have a few minutes for questions from the chat or from other panelists. So other panelists, if you want to raise your hand, I'll try to look for those. And any questions from the chat? Just trying to scroll up here. I think it's quite interesting how you're able to get this into curriculums. And some of the other people are asking about the sort of impact of working. How many schools are you talking about that you were able to, that your projects now encompass? This is a question to both Marianne and Morten, because that question has come up.
Yeah, well, I can say that our best experience in order to get Bridge into a new school is to go directly to the math teacher, because it seems to me that the math teachers have the best understanding of why they can put Bridge into their part of the curriculum. So you want to go to them, and we tried and go and say, well, I just want to borrow your class for 1 day, and I'll make a Bridge introduction, and you sit down and play, and you watch what they are doing while they are playing. This is, in our experience, a very, very easy way into the schools, because the teacher will see all the kids, also the kids that are not usually the best in the school, doing something good. They will sit still much longer than he's used to. They will do some cooperation that he's not used to seeing. And when a lot of teachers tell me that when they sit and act as pupils, they actually get a much better understanding of what works for their kids. So after a day like that, it's very easy to talk to him and say, well, why don't we make a 6, 8, 10 week session in your math hours, and they will be very happy to do that. The problem with approaching a school through the principal or whatever they are called is that they have so much on their desk. They have so many other things to do. So often you will just send something, and you might even get to talk to the guy, and they will smile and say, yes, that sounds good, and then nothing more will happen.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's probably the case in many countries.
Yeah. Interesting. Marianne, did you want to add, is your experience different, similar?
Oh, it's similar. We are actually not in the curriculum in secondary or primary school, but we experience the same thing. If you offer a Bridge class, they're super happy to let you join the class. And in high school, we are actually in the curriculum now. So it's not. We don't have to be in the curriculum. What we need is a 2-hour introduction to, let them try and feel. And there was also a very interesting question there in the chat about why we prefer to use real cards instead of tablets. And that is also because when you're teaching, it's more tactile to have the cards, and you can touch it and you can move it around. And I definitely think it's better to use the cards. But I sort of, was that an answer to your question? Or did I miss it?
Well, part of it was just the scale. Like, how many schools are you kind of working in?
In high school, we are just starting 1 school now. And in primary and secondary schools, we are building around where we have our juniors. And I think we must have been in like 50 schools or something. And we have started 7 junior Bridge clubs. And I hope they survived COVID, because they just refuse to play online. So I just hope, I know at least 4 of them will survive, but the others we might have to build from scratch.
Okay, good. Well, Thank you. So we're going to move on to the second part of this panel. The afternoon is flying by, or morning or evening, depending where you are. So all these panelists have provided recordings, so that's excellent. You can go and have a chance to look at those in a bit more detail. So we'll have Sue, Michael, and then Patty to add to the already fantastic presentations that have happened so far, and certainly thanks to all the presenters. So, Sue, you're up.
Thank you.
Johnson from Nutrix in England.
Thank you. So much of what I was really going to talk about has just been covered by Morten and Marianne, so I'm going to have to go off script a little bit here. But so essentially, if you've seen the pre-record, you'll know that what we're about at Nutrix is introducing Bridge to as many schools as possible. A lot of our focus as a kind of start point is the UK, but our materials are kind of online, and we hope that would be used globally. But the challenges, as I see them, for doing this are very much around the points that Morten and Marianne have raised, which is about building the evidence, first of all, so putting together a convincing message about why schools should teach Bridge, and then raising awareness. So even once you have that very good message, it's a question of how you get it out there to schools in order to get them to embrace the idea of introducing Bridge. So I think, given that there are lots of schools in the world, around the whole world, who've had some good experiences of introducing Bridge, what we have here in this conference and with BAMSA is an opportunity to pull together pieces of that experience from everywhere it exists, so that we can, I would hope that Nutrix and BAMSA together could kind of formulate that message about why schools should have Bridge, using all of the experiences that people have had so far, and to create a kind of multimedia version of that, so that as and when we get access to people in schools who might listen, be they the maths teacher, the head teacher, or whoever we can come into contact with, that we have a well thought through, I hesitate to use the word package of evidence, but some quotations from teachers, some examples of areas where the teachers who have introduced Bridge have felt that it's helped, and that kind of thing. And I think putting together video, written word stuff that people can be shown that's easy for them to look at would be a very valuable resource that can come out of this conference. I think that the best people to convince teachers that Bridge is a good thing to have are other teachers. And so creating networks from existing teachers who have Bridge in their schools to get them to reach out to other teachers on social media, in head teacher forums, this kind of thing, and to spread the word for us. So again, if we have that kind of central repository of all the schools in the world that are currently teaching Bridge, we can reach out to those schools and say, okay, can we really get your enthusiastic teachers to go on teacher social media and spread that word once we have this kind of simple message that they can deliver. So I think all of those things are important. I think the Duke of Edinburgh award scheme is a particularly useful hook for schools. I don't know to what extent schools outside of the UK use that scheme, but it works very well for Bridge because students who are doing the Duke of Edinburgh Award can use Bridge as a qualifying skill, so it's good for them, but also those students can get an extra credit on the Duke of Edinburgh Award scheme by acting as helpers in primary school Bridge clubs, where they can teach the little ones as they learn themselves. So again, any experience that the schools that already teach Bridge have of that kind of scheme, and indeed scouting other youth organizations like that, would be good ways to get the message out there. And then once you've engaged the schools with the idea of introducing Bridge, again, we're back to the question of how best to teach, and that's been covered widely by other people here, so both in the pre-records and live. So I'm not going to get enmeshed in that whole argument. The Nutrix method, very briefly, teaches only card play to start with. So we teach level 1 bridge, which is just playing in no trumps. Then we teach mini bridge. Then we introduce bidding. So the thing that I've learned most, I'm going to try and speed up now, is that schools are resource poor. They don't have people to run the classes, to run the clubs. And so thinking creatively about methods that might work, like asking them to identify parents who are interested in learning the game. Get those parents DBS checked, put them together into groups of 4 who can learn as groups of adults and who can then run the clubs for the school. But I think listening to everything I've heard this afternoon, the key is keeping it local. So if you create a local environment, you get one school telling another nearby school that they like bridge. You provide an environment where kids can compete inter-school very easily because they're near each other. And you also address Morten's concern about retention, because you can set up within schools a kind of mini bridge club for youth, which again, Marianne touched on. If you can keep a club going where the former pupils come back and they can play in competition. Kids love to compete. I'm getting the please stop sign. So I think this idea of keeping it local will allow bridge to grow in a very efficient way, and a way that engages kids long term. Good. That's it from me.
Thank you, Sue. Some excellent ideas there, and sort of certainly thoughts to think about. That build on nicely on the other 2 presentations. Okay, Michael, are you able to, have you got all the technology stuff fixed? Are you able to do your presentation?
I think so. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, so go ahead.
All right, I'm gonna start my timer too. All right, hi guys, my name is Michael. I'm a senior who just recently graduated from high school. I'm the co-founder of the Youth Bridge Association. So in case you haven't watched my recording yet, the Youth Bridge Association is an entirely youth-led organization dedicated to promoting Youth Bridge. We began this organization in the June of 2020, and it was co-founded by 4 U.S. national U21 team members, 4 USA national U21 team members, I should specify. So currently, for this presentation, I will just talk about the YBA. And right, so currently the YBA is on a hiatus, and I believe like we're on a hiatus for 2 reasons. One is that we're kind of burnt out, but the bigger reason is that we are unclear of what our next steps are, and like where our future is directed towards. And so why did I say that? Well, the reason why is so far, like the events that we've done is we've taught classes and we've cycled through beginner, intermediate, and advanced. Which doesn't mean that we've gotten players to become considered advanced players. It just means that we feel like by the time they finish advanced class, they're capable of, following suit and bidding reasonably to not playing 2-1 fits, but like, kind of find 8-card fits. So we taught classes and we hosted tournaments. And so like the most obvious thing to do is just continue teaching classes. But like the reason why we haven't done that yet, or we're not doing that, is because the ACBA Education Foundation recently announced BridgeWiz, which is a 20-week-long bridge class where anybody, I believe, in North America, any youth players in North America can take. So then the question becomes, well, does there really need to be multiple online youth classes? And I believe that the answer is no, because, well, here's a rhetorical question. Why couldn't every student who wants to learn bridge just take that one online class, right? Like it doesn't seem for there to be need to have multiple online bridge classes when there could just be one global universal youth bridge class. And so I'm talking like, we also believe that teaching online bridge is the most efficient way of teaching bridge, because it's a lot of work to teach bridge locally. Like you have to get kids to come from all different areas. Like it's just very difficult to find enough students for the class. And also there's the difficulty of, like if a student misses one class, it's actually very hard to, you just get behind, and it's very hard to catch up. So online classes, like it's just more efficient. Let's just put it that way. And so then like the YBA isn't doing our own class because the ACBL Education Foundation has already planned on doing their own online youth class. So like, you know, what do we do with this? Like, can we be involved with the ACBL Ed Foundation? And it's also unclear whether or not the ACBL Ed Foundation is even interested in a partnership with the YBA. So then, like, in terms of what the YBA would do in the future, like, let's consider what the core ethos of the YBA is. And I think what fundamentally distinguishes our organization from other Youth Bridge organizations is that it's really the idea of advanced Youth Bridge players helping nurture and grow beginner Youth Bridge players. So under that light, like maybe one way that we could be involved in promoting Youth Bridge is by training up advanced Youth Bridge players to become effective teachers for the ACBL online class. Another thing is, you know, another idea that I had is for the YBA to be involved in the youth nationals. I believe that there's this potential idea I had where at the youth nationals maybe we could have an event where it's like a bridge recruiting event where we recruit to the locals at the host hotel or around the host hotel, and then we recruit youth players, like just people who've never played bridge before, and we teach them there. And then with enough time, then we could throw them into the YNABC competition. And the YNABC is the Youth North American Bridge Nationals, by the way. So anyways, right now the YBA is just trying to figure out how we could be useful and not be redundant. And right, so there's a lot to think of right now, and we're not sure where our direction is. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Michael. That was really interesting. And also offered some different perspectives than have surfaced so far, which you can see in the chat, has got some thinking going, especially around the notion of teaching. So we now happily turn to Patty, who's a bridge teacher from the US, but I never caught where you're actually from, Patty. Did you say you're from Texas? I'm not sure if I got that right.
I'm from Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh, okay, right. Well, welcome. Good. So off you go. Barriers and enablers regarding youth and school bridge, and what research would be useful in this area.
Okay, so I originally started teaching Youth Bridge with a group called Atlanta Junior Bridge. We formed a nonprofit to teach bridge to kids. We were very successful for about 10 years or so, but one of the things that kind of happened to us after that, which other people have reported, is burnout. A lot of the teachers that we had been teaching for a long time and left. We had some of our youth teachers taught summer camps for us. Some of our young players who had gone through the program for several years taught some summer camps for us. That was very successful. But then, of course, they got older and they went on their merry way. So keeping the momentum going, I think, is one of the hardest things, and keeping an influx of new teachers and that type of thing is very important. I personally, and one of the things we tried, we actually wrote in Atlanta with the help of a group called Bridget Schools, which is now defunct, a curriculum for middle school teaching for middle schoolers. We were trying to get it into the elective program in middle schools, and it was built as a teacher's program. We didn't have a whole lot of luck. We taught one as an in-school elective program. We taught it with a math teacher, as you said, with a bridge helper who was a substitute teacher. But we never could get it into the system. I am this summer, actually, at the end of July, we're going about it in a different way with two perspectives. A teacher contacted me from Kentucky who teaches in a private school in Kentucky. She has, I'll just show you the picture because it's just as cute as they can be. 4 kids that she's been teaching, started teaching a while ago, and they are, now she has more, for more, and she wants to have school teaching all over her school. So she contacted me, and she contacted the ACBL Educational Foundation. I'm going for 2 days to teach school teachers bridge and talk about techniques of teaching bridge techniques to children. Then we're going to plan on, assuming they want to start school bridge at their schools, to like a monthly Zoom class to kind of keep them ahead so that they know a little bit more than their students know. Then I'm spending the next 2 days doing a 2-day bridge camp with students of the schools. They have a room for 80. They have so far 16 teachers signed up for the course for the teachers. They have so far 43 kids signed up for the summer camp, the 2-day camp, which will be basically mini bridge and a mini bridge tournament the last day. So it'll be play techniques, counting your points, picking trumps, you know, how the scoring works. And then the last half day will be a game. They'll be playing a game with each other. And then the last day, I'm teaching a Learn Bridge in a Day, which you're going to do as a fundraiser for their city, for the schools, to the whole cities of Springfield and Lebanon. So they're not only trying to get the school teachers involved, but more kids involved and the whole community. There's 2 small towns. Their probably total population is 10,000. So it's tiny. And that I'm hoping will be kind of a proof of concept, kind of a test of a concept. Will this work? Can we teach school teachers enough that they do? And then of course with the ACBL Corporation in general, their school bridge lesson program, the teachers can get stipends if they teach at least 16 hours of classes during school. So not during school, excuse me, 16 hours of school bridge during the year. So there's a chance that they can get some financial benefit from it. They might turn out to like bridge, we're going to see. And then Georgia Tech is going to be talking to me after I get back. They are interested in maybe their outreach program, doing something within their outreach program. But I think that approaching school bridge through the school teachers is a more long-term success story, because they are there every day. They know how it works. They know how the system works. They know how to get things done within the school system. And in America, I talked to Mary and I was going to talk to Morton. Yours is a national kind of thing. And in the United States, it's very much more regionally, that the schools, even within a city, get to determine what they're going to have for their area. So there you go.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Patty. Interesting, the idea that's coming up about who to approach in the school and the entry point being the teacher. That is actually a deliberate strategy that's often used by providers of digital technologies in schools, is that they market directly to teachers. Because if teachers can start using them, then there's sort of a push from below. There's certainly a lot of questions in the chat about who teaches bridge in the school. Should it be teachers? Should it be like bridge experts coming in? Should it be some kind of mix? I was also interested in the idea that Patty was suggesting about, you know, working with these teachers and they themselves forming a little bit of a community. And I wonder if that linked a little bit to Sue's idea about how you get a network of teachers all talking the talk about bridge and sort of expanding it that way. So I think there's some intersecting themes there. But comments from the panel then about what is the strategy? I mean, there can be multiple strategies. The advantages of actually working with teachers so that they can do the teaching or perhaps be supported to do it, versus bringing in teaching bridge teachers. And then the other thread in that seems to be age, that perhaps having young people teaching young people teaching old people, older people teaching young people. I don't know. I mean, there's lots of dynamics there to consider. So that's over to you to make the sense of it how you want, panel. So Morten, is that your hand up to jump in?
Yes, it's a comment about who should teach. We have been talking to, when we are going into a class, usually the teacher from the school, we put him down at a table so they get involved in playing. And then afterwards we talk to them and ask them, well, how could you teach bridge? And the issue is that the people that we bring in from the bridge clubs, even if they are young or whatever they are, they don't know anything about what we call classroom management. So to say, to make sure that the kids shut up when they're supposed to shut up. And a lot of them have problems with technology in the schools because at least here in Denmark, they all have these smart boards, so we can show the small video things on there. But we need the teacher in the school in order to do that. So what we see is that if we only want a school teacher to teach bridge, the problem is that it's very tough for them to do the bridge related things, to help the kids understand what is it they don't understand. Because if you're a sort of a beginner in bridge, that's not very easy. On the other hand, if we bring in teachers from the bridge community, they don't know anything about classroom management, they don't know anything about running a class, and they also have technology problems. So what we've been trying to do is to make a mix where the teacher is doing the classroom management and the IT stuff and whatever the teacher thinks he or she can do. And then we bring in some of our helpers with the bridge related things, because basically it's easy to put on a 2-minute video with the bridge things of the day. Anyone can do that, but when you start walking around the classroom and helping the kids, you need some sort of bridge understanding. So we are trying to work out with a mix of the school teacher and then 1 or 2 helpers from the bridge community, and that seems to work well, because what we see also is when we're talking about bridge teachers, a lot of bridge players are afraid to be the person in charge. So they don't want to stand up in front of the class and sort of being in charge of what's going on. But the school teacher is used to doing this. So if we can share the work where the school teacher takes care of as much as he or she can, and then we have 1 or 2 helpers from the bridge club who can help with the bridge things at the table, that seems to work well.
Good, thank you. Patty, you have your hand up.
Yes, what I was just going to say that we've tried a lot of times to have bridge players actually working with the kids in the classroom and that type of thing. And what we found was very good bridge players are often not very good teachers. And my thought on this new initiative is that school teachers are kind of the other end. They know how to teach. So the question is, can I keep them enough bridge knowledge going if they're interested, that they can at least keep up with their kids and maybe have camps again. I don't know, but I think that the ability to teach, to know how to teach, especially kids, is more important, or at least as important as your bridge knowledge. I think if you can't impart it well and you can't keep the kids excited and interested. So there you go.
Good. Thank you. So I see a couple of other raised hands. Sue, did you want to jump in as well?
Yes, on this question of who teaches best. And I completely agree with Patty that good bridge players probably make terrible bridge teachers because they want to teach too much too quickly. They know all this stuff and they want to get all of that stuff across. And it's far, far more effective to have people learning it like a similar pace to the kids. So I think one of the good ways to approach this which is also helpful to the schools, is to get groups of 4 teachers who want to learn to play bridge, and you teach them a few weeks ahead of the kids. So you can get them together online, you start them watching like our videos or whatever your teaching methods are going to be, and then they're teaching the kids 3 weeks behind their own learning or 4 weeks behind their own learning. So they're all curious together, they're all encountering the same stumbling blocks, and providing a kind of backup to them online, as Nutrix can, you can help them to learn as a group and then to be much more effective teachers, because they already know how to teach, how to manage a classroom. They just don't know how to play bridge. So we say in some of our stuff that we send out to schools, you don't need a bridge teacher in your school. You need a teacher who just needs to stay 2 steps ahead of the kids.
I think these are interesting questions because they bring up that whole notion of expertise and how expertise can be distributed, sort of pedagogical expertise, bridge expertise, and how those sort of come together, along with a really interesting theme in all of this, but perhaps not surprising, is this, I'm almost calling it a tension that I see between local efforts versus more global things and what opportunities each of those afford, but then also looking at sort of the value and interest in doing some things online versus face-to-face. And then there was a question, and I'm going to direct this to you, Michael, about that transition. Is there a transition? Because I'm not a bridge player. Is it a difficult transition to go from playing online bridge to playing in person? And I'd just be interested, because that was one of the questions that came up in that in the chat.
Like going from online to in live person. I don't see why. Well, I don't have any experience with that, because I learned bridge in person, and now I started playing bridge online. But I don't like physically holding your cards. That's not a great challenge. I don't see why there will be an issue for a student who learns online bridge to not be able to play bridge in person.
I suppose the other dimensions come into that, though, because there's the technical aspect of playing bridge, but there's also the social aspect, and that part can be a little bit different online as opposed to face-to-face. But that is interesting to consider in terms of that transition. The global and the local. Oh, Sam, you have your hand up, and sort of Marianne has. Oh, and Sue has their hand up. Okay, so we'll go in that order. Sam, Marianne, and Sue.
Yeah, I mean, we might have to just run over 5 minutes if that's okay with everyone. Just because just to finish up these questions and stuff, and have the wrap up. Just Mariana and Morten, you both kind of mentioned about needing more research evidence on how bridge improves learning. Can you just say a bit more specific? And I think Sue, you mentioned it, but could you two, or Mariana at least, when you're going to speak next, could you just say exactly what evidence is required? Does it matter whether it's quantitative, qualitative? Because often people want randomized control trials and they're incredibly expensive. And often at the end of it, you could spend £500,000 or $500,000 or euros and still not know whether it was actually bridge that made the difference to the test score. So would governments, do you think, be happy with other kinds of more qualitative evidence, such as evidence from parents, schools, teachers, and the children themselves in terms of qualitative evidence?
Well, I don't think it matters that much, because they have some freedom of choice. So any evidence would be good. Qualitative would be good. I think quantitative evidence would be even better, but it's not imperative. And I think any kind of evidence, I mean, anything we could tell would be good.
So, Marianne, did you want to, you also had your hand up, so did you have another comment that you were going to make? And then we'll come to get Morten's.
I have 2 questions, yes. If I may raise them. I have a question to Sue and Patty in how do you approach the teacher to recruit them to learn bridge 2 steps ahead of the kids? And one question to Morten. Morten, how do you train your helpers, your bridge helpers that are teaching alongside the teachers? How do you train your helpers?
Marianne, I would reach, I don't know about your colleges, but most of the colleges in the United States or universities have outreach programs to the local schools. One of the things that one of the colleges has told me is a lot of the outlying schools that are not in like major cities are having problems with meeting their testing goals. And the outreach program, the colleges might be a tie-in to some of the teachers from those schools. They're using in Kentucky the funding on their end for this training for the teachers came from professional development money. That's our teachers go through some professional development. So I might try one of your local universities or colleges, find out who has outreach programs with the schools, and maybe make like I'm doing a 2-day seminar or something with the teachers and see if you find some interested.
Thank you.
And Sue.
Yes, I mean, this is back to the same problem again about raising awareness. I spoke to a teacher recently about how best to reach out to teachers to recruit those who are interested. And they suggested that online and indeed published magazines that are teacher directed are a good way to reach these people. I mean, in the UK, we have TES, but also the unions, the teaching unions have publications that go out to all of their members. So I'm contemplating in desperation using paid advertising in these magazines, but if we can persuade someone to run an article about the value of bridge, then again, it's back to this build the evidence base. Someone will publish the article and then you have your raised awareness. Just one more thing very quickly that I mentioned to Sam already in terms of building the evidence base. I've been in contact with a professor of neuroscience from Oxford who has just published some research showing that kids who study maths beyond GCSE level do much better in terms of overall cognitive skills, and that he made the comment that not everyone enjoys maths, but he believes that playing like strategic games might well confer the same kind of benefits that continuing to study maths does. And he's very interested. I reached out to him and suggested that he run some research program involving bridge in this context, and he's very excited about that. So hopefully when he moves to his new University of Surrey post in September, we may well get some research into the cognitive benefits of bridge being carried out.
Really good.
Yeah, it's not always just about the test score, right? Because that cognitive, there's a lot of other quantitative evidence, although it's still a really slippery slope in education to make really firm links between these kinds of things. But good question. So Morten, you had your hand up.
Yes, to Sam, basically the things we need is something that is made by scientists. Because what the politicians, at least in Denmark, say is that it's fine that we come from the bridge community and say it's good for this and this and this. But if you can get some sort of an independent scientist to write something that sort of aims that bridge might be good, that's very good. So I don't think it's so important if it's made one or the other way. It's just very important that it's some sort of independent scientific thing that tells something about that bridge is good, because the politicians don't have time to read all this very thoroughly. They just need, if someone comes and tells them 2 years later, why did you spend all this money on bridge? They just need to say, well, look what it said in this paper. So basically, but and to Marianne, you were asking about the helpers. What we do is we have sort of a small helper instruction, but what really works is that when we're doing a bridge introduction in a school, so the first time a class or 2 or 3 classes meet, we try to bring the new interested helpers from the local club and we and put them in there, because at that point, when the kids are totally new to bridge, it's really not so important if the helpers make some mistakes, because the kids get so much stuff put into their head anyway. So we can sort of educate the helpers without doing too much damage.
Thank you.
That's an interesting turn of phrase, without doing too much damage. So I'm looking, we're sort of at the end. I just have a question to sort of build on Sam's one, and the notion of evidence and needing evidence came up very strongly in this panel, but not in the other one. And so I'm wondering, is it that adult population and maybe the younger working adult population, which was of specific interest, is that not something that you think would be useful in helping to attract, maintain, understand your own strategies around that? Because it is interesting that the evidence, and I understand because of the school system and the politicians and the funding, but is there evidence that, also research evidence, that would be important when considering other populations and ways to attract, maintain, and sort of work with them to develop bridge expertise? Patty?
You know, there was that study done, I think, for elderly people, that the studies that have done about bridge staving off Alzheimer's, mental senility, etc. I think numbers or testing on that, it would be beneficial, I think, but you know, that in general is not, we've got that population, so we're, you know, they want to learn bridge. I don't know that I think that it matters that much to the 25 to 40-year-old population, or 25 to 50. And I think we stress it so much with the younger players because we need to get funding, and we need to get an entry into the schools, and we need to get help in order to get enough people out there to do it and enough sources. So I think it's definitely needed there.
Okay. Well, on that note, we are over by a few minutes, so I just wanted to end by thanking all the speakers and the participants. Sam said, expect lively chat, and she was indeed right. There were certainly lots of activity in the chat, and I'd have to say, as someone who's not a bridge player, but certainly saw how much my parents enjoyed playing bridge, this has been fascinating, because when I asked my mother to teach me how to play bridge, she said no, it was too hard. So I found I've just really enjoyed being here. So thank you for letting me chair this session, and hopefully you found it useful. There's certainly been some fabulous conversations. So a big round of applause to all the presenters and to all the questions and contributions to our collective knowledge building. And in terms of the next thing coming up, there is a session that starts, I guess, in an hour and a half on marketing bridge, which follows very nicely from this one. And then the conference close and panel discussion a bit later. So enjoy the rest of your conference day, everyone.
And huge thanks to Terry Lynn for chairing this. As a non-bridge playing outsider, I think she has brought some interesting insights. She's part of our Faculty of Social Sciences, so we are hoping to work with her in an interdisciplinary way in the future so that we can draw on multidisciplinary perspectives in terms of digital learning and other forms of learning and communities of practice. So thanks, Terry Lynn.
You're welcome.
That's a fantastic session.